Hi, I'm Bonnie Barker with BonnieBCrochet.com, and I'm here with my son-in-law Bryan again.
Hello.
And many of you asked for an update as how Bryan's doing. Well, we have some things to show you.
I'm getting ready to get graded. Is
Yes.
what I'm getting.
And let me ask Bryan. Bryan, did I help you with this swatch at all?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
Becky gave me, my wife, who's behind the camera, gave me a couple pointers here and there, but I largely figured this out by myself.
So this was your starting chain?
That was my starting chain.
Wow.
Single crochet. Basically, the bottom of this, these first two, I ripped out, and I just started over at least 6 times. I mean, I was getting it, rip, keep going, and until I was really happy with where I was.
And what were you intending to make with this?
It was going to be a scarf, but that is the jankiest scarf I've ever seen. I mean, because a scarf is a strip of cloth.
And trust me, I'm laughing with him, not at him, because
No, she's laughing at
this is very, very normal for beginners. So if you've ever made a scarf that looks like this, and I'll tell you what happened. As we're looking at Bryan's scarf, the first thing the crochet diagnostic person here wants to say is that he did have trouble seeing where the first stitch and the last stitch to be crocheted. And so in doing, he actually left those 2 stitches out. Actually, I think he just missed the last stitch of each row, and we end up with this almost perfect
Well,
triangle.
there's also something that I did forget is I didn't get the ending, and it was the chain up.
Yes,
it was the chain up, which you showed me. I was like, I didn't know that.
Right. Yeah, I think that was last night. You asked this, and we said something, and I think my other son, who who crochets, he
does?
Oh no, Hudson. Okay, so it was the son who did crochet, who's very analytical. He's the one who said, "You didn't chain." Why he knows this, I don't know.
And how he knows this.
That's amazing. But anyway, from a distance, he said, "I don't see any chains." So minus the chain, that's going to also kind of make it a little tighter as you go in and pull in the sides. But generally, as I look at this, it actually looks very good. I don't want to be all negative and everything. And honestly, this helped you to learn a lot,
no,
didn't
absolutely.
Yeah.
I just reached the end of that, and you wanted to save that for an example for this.
Right.
And so I decided to move on to something else.
Yeah.
But it was, for a starter thing, it's nice. Yeah. It's a nice swatch, it's dishcloth.
Right. And his stitches look okay. Now there was an interesting thing here. If I flip it around, he actually worked it on the other side of the chain too. So he actually worked across his chain and then went around and worked across the other side of the chain and then kept going. So I don't even know if you realized you did that.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about.
You crocheted on this side, and then you went around and started crocheting this way.
Oh.
That's pretty good. It's got hidden talents here we're discovering.
I guess. Also, at the bottom, and this was another one of the small things that actually Becky helped me out with, is I didn't go under both loops. I just started going under the one, and you called that, what was that called?
When you use it with a slip stitch, we call it a low front ridge. But,
there you go.
But sometimes some crochet patterns call for working only in one or the other loop. So I wouldn't even say that was a mistake.
Yeah, no. I was trying to get the single crochet down before I went on to something else. Right. So I was just trying to nail that. And so for me, that was a partial failure. But even though it is something in the future, it's just good to know.
And thank you for saying that word, partial failure. I want to encourage you because and those of you out there who feel like I failed because Bryan did not fail in doing his first scarf.
It's the biggest scarf I've ever seen.
he actually learned a lot, and it's like, for me personally, it's like those questions that I missed on my 9th grade biology quiz way back in the day when we did things like that. It's the ones that I missed that I learned and corrected. The ones that I guessed at and got right, well, I never really truly learned those. So by making mistakes like this and having someone to maybe correct them or just kind of point them out for you, it's a great way to learn. Because let me show you. It hasn't even been a week yet.
Hasn't even been 20. Well, it has been 24.
It's been more than 24 hours.
Yeah,
it's been maybe 3 days, 2 days. But look at what he's doing now. And
I started that this morning, and it's almost 4. So.
And I wasn't in the vicinity, or I would have said, oh, please don't use black, because black is, I have a hard time using black. Now, if you want to make something black, it's a great color to wear. I love wearing this color, but crocheting with it requires a ton of light, and it just a lot of tenacity, because it's just harder to see the loops. So if
one thing I will say, for me as an individual, I won't recommend everybody starting out with black, but it forced me to really pay attention where I was going.
Okay.
And it just keep going faster and faster. To me, it helped my concentration, because I was doing it not a low light scenario, but a normal.
Yeah. And how much time do you think you spent on this? Because this is a lot of stitches.
2 hours, 3 hours, maybe.
Really, that much? Wow.
Maybe.
So this.
Maybe I don't know. I was working on and off. It's like my hand also, these 2 fingers, just
sore.
holding on to it, just are pretty sore. And the rest of my hands are fine, but I can still feel it in these 2 fingers.
Yeah. So you probably need to rest, or maybe one thing maybe you could try is maybe working 30 minutes if you have the time, and then setting it aside.
And that's basically what I did the entire morning. As I started it out, kept going.
Except you got hooked on it, didn't you? Okay, so he is starting to experience some of the addictive qualities.
No, but it is very addictive. As I told you earlier, I like to work with my hands. I'm a very hands-on kind of guy. And this is, it's just fun just to sit there and just go.
Yeah, that's great.
It gives something stimulating to do. So I do understand the addictive quality to it now.
That's good. Now I just want to point out, I could be a super critic and
please do.
And say, oh, there's a mistake here. But by and large, for a beginner, this is amazing. Right here, he did not drop a stitch, but he did not crochet a stitch here. So that's going to shorten his stitch count by 1 stitch. But by and large, he's getting this. He's got this. It's
it'll make a nice dish rack.
Yeah, it definitely. Well.
Maybe not with that.
That's a good point. He said actually I have a pattern for a dish rag that is just about like this, except the problem with this being a dish rag is the fiber that was selected. Now this is a great yarn, but it's wonderful acrylic yarn. If you're going to want to make something for scrubbing, I would recommend, or I highly recommend, something that's 100% cotton and worsted weight. You can buy this in all the big box stores, craft stores, even at some major department stores like Walmart that sell yarn. They have cotton, and it's kind of a little rough feeling. It's not as smooth when you crochet with it, but you can make a dishcloth that's just this shape. Maybe your mom would really like that.
Yeah.
And I have some in my kitchen drawer that are more than 10 years old. The color's a little washed out, but they're still strong, and the stitches are intact, and they're still scrubbing my pots. So.
And that's stuff that you've created, or was that somebody else created?
Yeah, there's actually another video on my channel for an easy beginner's dishcloth. So it's really easy. You can actually, you've done the pattern right here without even me being in the room. So it's a very easy thing.
It's just a single stitch all the way up.
Yeah. All right. Well, in closing, Bryan, any questions you have or comments about that you'd want to share with?
Moving on from this, just to make the entire scarf. It's just basically the same thing all the way through, correct?
If you're doing single crochet.
Yeah, single crochet.
No, but I would also recommend, if you want to change it up to a double crochet, you can, because it's black, you really can change the stitches and nobody's really going to notice. At least a non-crocheter is not going to notice or pay attention. You could go up to double crochet, and I'd recommend maybe practicing double crochet at this point. And then if you want to finish the end of it, with some more single crochet so that the ends match, that would be great. You might be able to finish it up with what's left of that scan. He didn't start with the whole scan. He went through, I told him he's allowed to go through this entire box of my stash of my acrylic and say, whatever you want is yours. And if he does
making sweaters.
Right. Well, when you do well with this, you can come look through my stash that's the natural fibers and have fun.
Cool.
But I'd like to start out with acrylic just because I know many people don't stick with it, and you don't want to invest a whole lot and then just give it up. So you want to, work your way
Start off small and then move on if you
Yeah.
That's all hobbies, though.
Yeah.
Really.
But actually, the acrylics are amazing because if you're newlywed, if you make something out of acrylic for my family in the future, no pressure. But I have Afghans that I've made. Actually, I have one that goes back to when I was 7, and it was made out of acrylic, and it's still going. It's still survived,
wow.
and it's been through many washings and dryings.
On a kind of similar but unrelated note, you saw my handiwork.
Okay.
The way I was doing it, was there anything that I was doing wrong that you didn't like? Any bad habits that I had started out, or for a beginner to watch out in the actual hands-on part of it?
No. There was one thing, but it really doesn't matter. There's one place where he was putting the hook in, and instead of letting the hook, the yarn naturally kind of fall over, was kind of making a motion to wrap to get the yarn around the other way. It did not change the way the stitch looked at all. But one thing I mentioned is that it does add a slight additional motion for each stitch, which if you're doing, 1 or 2 stitches is no big deal. But typically when a crocheter sits down, they may do that repetition over 1,000 times. And over 1,000 times doing that additional little loop or twist that you don't have to do.
That can get...
Yeah, it does. And that's why I like to really focus on, holding the yarn properly and everything. You can do it other ways, but I also want to help you to be able to do this in a few years. I don't want the motion to, hurt your wrist, or you want to minimize the motion to as smooth and as you want the least amount of work. We all want that, right? You want to minimize how much you have to work. Well,
and it might seem
in a good sense.
Yeah, it might seem like a small amount of work, but if you stretch that over weeks and possibly years, that's
which is millions of stitches, literally.
And that's
Yeah, and I want you to not have to do carpal tunnel. I am staying away from carpal tunnel. I am trying to manage that myself. So
good form essentially is
good form, good basic technique. What do you call it? Fundamentals.
Yeah.
Just good fundamentals.
The basics.
That way it's relaxing and it's not you're not fighting it. So yeah, that's a great question. Any other questions that you can think of that the beginner might have?
One thing that Becky, my wife, told me is just keep going and just keep practicing. And eventually the tension will work itself out. And obviously it's not perfect because I do have some rather sizable holes in there. It's just feeling it out and just keep going.
Yeah, that's excellent. We're not after perfection here. We're after learning to enjoy a wonderful fiber art. I will say I've had things published in magazines and books that if I could pull you aside and just show you, this isn't exactly perfect. But don't tell anybody I said that, okay? We're not after perfection. We're just after excellence. And from what I see here, this is excellent. And that's actually the beauty of something that is handmade. It's not made by a machine. It's not made by a mold. It's made by a person. And there's something extra special about that.
So one thing, that's cool. Yeah. On a different note, one thing that Becky always tells me is knit can be done by machine, crochet can't. Why can't crochet? This is just a personal question here. Is that nitty gritty?
No, that's an excellent question. I was thinking of a smart alecky answer, like because it's superior. I don't know. But I am joking. I am so joking. No, actually, I just learned how to knit this past year, and I'm really enjoying that. You don't have to tell anybody. No, I'm just kidding. I do have I have some beginner knit videos, and you can see me struggle with my beginning knitting if you're interested. Actually, I love knitting. I love the craft. I love the way it looks. And one thing I learned about knitting is it's a lot more simple than I had envisioned. I learned to actually knit using the continental method, which uses the exact same yarn hold. And it's just that instead of holding the fabric, you're holding onto a needle. And that's the main difference.
Interesting.
The motion of the dominant hand in knitting is much less than crochet. Crochet, you're actually going up and down and around and in and through and forming a stitch. Where knit is oftentimes, you're bringing loops, just a single loop through somewhere. And I say just a single loop through, not as if it's easier. It really depends on who you are. Some people find that knitting is easier, and some people find that crochet is easier. Some people do both.
Would you say that depends on what you start out with?
I think it depends on what you start out with. Yeah, okay. I think it does. But I enjoy both. But I can do this with my eyes closed most of the time. In some patterns, knitting, it's much more. I have to be really concentrating. It's much more, as people say, meditative. I find this more relaxing. They're both very relaxing, and they're both, I think, complementary. It's good to know both if you can. A lot of people who knit primarily actually use crochet maybe to do trim and edging sometimes. But some people prefer the knitted fabric, like for sweaters and things like that. I mean, you can definitely crochet sweaters. I've done that, and I think using the thinner yarns, it makes it very doable these days. But the knitted fabric is always going to be thinner. You tend to use a little bit less, maybe 30%, I'm guessing, less yarn. But they're both delightful crafts. Yeah.
So, yeah.
But this is definitely, I definitely enjoy knitting. But my passion is crochet, and that's not going to change. As far as fiber arts.
Now, Bonnie Bay Crochet would be a headache to change the name now. So
I've thought about that, yeah. But I wanted to give you something. Just a little.
Oh dear.
I don't have a Medal of Honor or anything to give you for attempting this, but I'm going to give him one of my official Crochet is Cool Bonnie Bay Crochet hooks and make you an official member of our gang here, of the fiber.
I finally have a
fiber gang. Yay! It's the good kind. Well, thank you, Bryan, for joining us. And
this has been fun.
I tell you what, he's going to be heading back home with my daughter. Unfortunately, that's about 4 hours away from here. But next time he's in town, I promise you, I am going to try to get an update. And
it depends on how busy life gets in the next couple weeks. So I'll do my best to keep going, and I might have a project or two. Yeah,
because I've heard some rumblings of maybe making a gift or two here or there.
Oh yeah, I got birthdays coming up in May, so Mom, my sister, don't watch this video. So,
don't. Okay, we'll make sure they don't see that. So, just in case it doesn't happen, but no pressure. Yeah, if you get a chance.
That means pressure.
Actually, pressure is good. Deadlines are a great invention. Yeah, that keeps you. It makes you complete things.
It's true.
But anyway, okay. Well, that ends part 2 of teaching a newbie how to crochet. Just wish you all the best. God bless. Bye.
Au revoir.